Sir Keir Starmer has undertaken what many had deemed unthinkable for a British Prime Minister. He has crossed a line that critics say threatens the very fabric of democratic life in the United Kingdom. What was initially introduced as a well-meaning programme of governance reform has now spiralled into a constitutional crisis of national proportions, described by legal scholars as the most blatant affront to democratic norms in decades. The Labour leader now finds himself at the centre of an escalating legal storm, accused of weaponising state authority to stifle political opposition, restrict voter choice, and engineer the electoral landscape to his advantage. What began as a quiet judicial filing has since erupted into a full-blown political firestorm, with the courts fast-tracking the case amid surging public interest and growing civil unrest. If you've been watching our content but haven't subscribed yet, you're not alone. Over 98% of our viewers haven't subscribed. If you want to stay updated with the latest news in a clear and simple way, now's the perfect time to subscribe. By subscribing, you'll be among the first to know about all the new updates. We're committed to being a trustworthy source, bringing you the news in the best way possible. Just hit that subscribe button to stay informed with us. At the heart of the controversy lies a far-reaching initiative involving postponed elections, the disqualification of candidates, and the restructuring of local political systems, measures allegedly designed to curb the meteoric rise of Reform UK, a party that has upended the traditional political order. The origins of the scandal trace back to Starmer's rebranded devolution bill, initially marketed as a modern and efficient overhaul of local government, pitched to the public as a renewal of civic empowerment. Beneath the optimistic rhetoric, however, lurked a more cynical agenda, to dismantle local democratic processes in regions where Labour had lost its grip. The message from Downing Street soon became unmistakably clear: vote for the wrong party, and your voice would be silenced. The crackdown followed swiftly after Reform UK stunned Westminster by securing hundreds of council seats across traditional Labour and Conservative heartlands. Rather than respond through debate or democratic competition, the government retaliated with administrative force. Local councils were dissolved, elections postponed, and newly created regional authorities swiftly installed, many of them filled with loyal Labour appointees. There was no public consultation, no parliamentary scrutiny, merely a quiet power grab masked as procedural reform. In counties such as Lincolnshire and Staffordshire, council meetings were abruptly cancelled, candidate vetting rules were altered overnight, and opposition hopefuls were barred from standing. Reform UK's leadership soon discovered that their by-election candidates had been disqualified under vaguely defined competency reviews, their names removed from ballots under the guise of maintaining procedural integrity. By contrast, Labour-dominated councils faced no such interference, their operations continued unhindered, with no delayed votes or sudden disqualifications. This stark disparity in political treatment quickly caught the public eye. Protests began erupting across the Midlands and the north of England. What began as scattered expressions of outrage soon coalesced into a unified movement. Civil liberties organisations, retired judges, disillusioned former Labour voters, and Reform UK officials united to mount what is now being called an historic legal challenge against a sitting Prime Minister. The allegations are as incendiary as they are consequential, that Starmer misused the machinery of government to manipulate the political landscape, enacting legislation not to reform but to repress. This was no baseless conspiracy theory, it was a formal legal action, backed by the courts and supported by damning evidence. Leaked internal memos from senior Labour strategists revealed discussions of redrawing constituency boundaries and rewriting vetting procedures specifically to curtail Reform UK's momentum. Further revelations emerged as whistleblowers within the civil service stepped forward, confirming that Downing Street had issued explicit instructions to neutralise Reform UK influence in politically vulnerable regions. These were not reforms, they were deliberate obstructions, drafted to suppress grassroots challenges. In a rare and decisive move, the courts agreed to hear the case without delay. With that, British democracy itself was placed on trial. The implications, should the court rule against Starmer, are seismic. A finding that his devolution agenda constituted political weaponry could result in the dismantling of newly formed local authorities, the reinstatement of banned candidates, and the scheduling of fresh elections in affected areas. There are already calls, albeit tentative, for Starmer's resignation should the case succeed. The proceedings have sent a chilling message through the political establishment, can a Prime Minister now use legislative reform as a smokescreen for silencing opponents? Reform UK had not broken any laws. It had staged no insurrection. It had merely connected with the electorate, won their confidence, and achieved electoral victories. For this, the party found itself punished. Candidates were erased from ballots, supporters subjected to criminalisation. The emotional heart of the crisis came in a small Midlands town, where a 62-year-old man arrived at his polling station only to find that Reform UK had been removed from the ballot. In protest, he filmed himself submitting a spoiled vote, stating simply, "This isn't democracy." He was arrested within minutes, under nebulous, public order regulations embedded in the very same Devolution Act. His mobile phone was seized, but the footage he captured went viral within hours, sparking nationwide outrage. He swiftly became the face of a growing resistance, an ordinary citizen punished for protesting against political manipulation. His image now appears on placards across the country, from rural town halls to urban squares. As unrest intensified, the government retreated to a defensive posture, but Downing Street refused to concede ground. Officials insisted that the man's protest had threatened electoral integrity. No apology was issued. Yet the public saw something altogether different, a betrayal of democratic values unfolding in real time. Then came the most damning revelation of all. A whistleblower leaked internal documentation proving that Starmer's office had issued direct instructions to neutralize Reform UK's regional footholds via structural manipulation. Suppression was not an unintended side effect, it was the plan. As the legal case advanced, public pressure mounted. The protests grew louder.